Hello, and welcome to Get Recc'd. I am your host, Louis Falgout.
And I am your other host, Stephen Falgout. Hey, Louis.
Yeah, what's up? What's going on?
Boo.
Oh my god, no! There's blood! It lifted.
Wow.
I lifted the curtains. Oh my god, no!
Wow. I hope everyone is sufficiently spooked.
Steven, I don't think I can continue. I'm done. I quit. I can't do it. The screen's red.
I know.
Steven, you didn't warn me this time.
Sometimes that's what us in the industry, Louis, that's what we call a jump scare.
Oh my god. Wow.
Did you jump?
I jumped. I got out of my seat and I jumped for joy. I
jumped for joy. I just can't wait. It's Halloween. It's All Hallows Eve, the eve of All Hallows Day, as everyone knows. I'm here actually in the middle. I'm coming to you live, Louis, from the middle of a street. I'm surrounded by trick-or-treaters. There are real witches trying to suck the souls of children.
Wow.
So that's how my Halloween's going. How's your Halloween going so far, Louis?
It was going fine. I honestly forgot it was Halloween. There were no spooks, there were no scares, and which was disappointing for me. But thankfully, you were able to fulfill the need. I've got all the lights off in my room. It's feeling really fucking freaky, really freaky, a little spooky. Not all the way up yet. Not all the way up there. We'll get there. We'll get there. But I would say spook levels at the moment are probably 45%. But I trust that by the end of this podcast, it'll be off the charts.
Yeah, well, I can definitely understand that, Louis, because I feel like every year Halloween happens a little earlier. I think a lot of people, I was looking, here's a little anecdote for you. I was building out some trivia for work, some Halloween trivia for our Halloween party. And one of the supposedly tough trivia questions that was asked, and I understand, I completely understand because of the way Halloween is structured these days. One of the really hard trivia questions that they had on the internet was, what day is Halloween typically celebrated on? So it's definitely understandable, Louis, that you forgot today of all days was the witching day.
It's funny. I'm racking my brain right now for an answer. I just cannot come up with it.
Yeah.
Hold on, Steven. I need to check my calendar real quick. Oh, okay. It's October 31st. Okay, guys. Halloween's on October 31st. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Actually, on most people's calendar, you should see, Louis, I don't know if you saw it, there should be blood dripping off your calendar from the 31st. Are you seeing that right now?
No, I'm not.
Oh, well.
We got some work to do, Steven. We got some real work to do. Okay.
Hold on. Let me try this again. Let me try it again.
Oh, okay.
Boo.
Holy shit! Now? Oh my god, it's gushing blood. I'm not prepared. I don't have a first aid kit. I don't have gauze. I don't have bandages. Steven, my calendar is going to die.
And you know what else is gushing blood, Louis? This bit. So why don't we go ahead and jump right into another blood gusher, what you recommended to me, Louis. You want to talk about that?
So I recommended to you the YouTube channel nana825763. While this channel doesn't have a particular theme nowadays, in fact, many of the videos uploaded are Minecraft Let's Plays. This channel could be called a horror channel because its most popular videos are all horror videos dating back to 2007 with username 666, one of the premier internet horror videos. But there are a few other ones, and I recommended some specific ones to Steven. I guess he can tell you which ones those were because I honestly don't remember exactly. But I guess I'll let you get right into it.
Yeah, and just quickly as a recap, today's podcast brought to you by our sponsor Halloween is only full of spooky spookums. So that's why we'll be talking about two horror genre things
Wait a
today.
minute. You just said spook, Steven. I think you've summoned them.
Uh,
Oh my god.
did
Oh
I?
no.
Oh
They're
no.
everywhere. Oh god, they're oh.
Oh geez.
Well,
The
I think it's all over. I think it's done.
oh
We've got
oh
returning
no.
skeletons, returning spooks. Ashley and Zoe on the top. Let's give a round of applause for Ashley and Zoe.
Ashley and
returning
Zoe.
Ashley and Zoe. Round of applause. We've got right next to Steven, returning guest Billy. Actually, no, Billy's next to me. I'm sorry. Wow. I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. Mallory's
Sorry for
next
that,
to
Billy.
Steven.
Yeah,
Mallory's
Mallory.
is next to Steven there,
Well, Lewis,
sneaking around
just
as
quickly,
always.
quickly, Lewis. The reason why you probably forget is because he does have sneak at 100.
He does.
It's even hard to see him. Look at him slinking away.
Yeah. Just about to take refuge behind the transparent S in your name. I don't think we're going to be able to see him by the end of the night. So keep an eye out on him. He could be up to some weird shit. But on top of my head, we've got a new haunt. And I can't believe this. I didn't expect this. I don't know if you expected this, Steven. But this is our violinist, Lindsay. She is just going nuts. She's having a ball. She's jumping up and down, just having a great time. And on top of Steven's head, we have baseball enthusiast Gary, who really has an infinite supply of baseballs there. I don't know where he's
and
getting
honestly, just really trying to murder me so hard, but that curveball is just too fierce. Can't get the pitch.
It just keeps disappearing. I don't know why. It must be a ghost ball.
Wow, nothing spookier than violin and baseball. So I'm glad it's there. I am a pitcher's mound. I do double as a pitcher's mound, so I'm glad that they're using me as such. And Lewis, you actually double as an orchestra box. That's why, of course, Lindsay is doing her thing.
My head has great acoustics.
Absolutely. So with that being said, now that our friends have joined us, we can really get this thing kicking off. I'm thinking we're up to, what would you say, probably a 60% on the spook factor now?
It's at least, somewhere there between that and 70.
Okay. And you know what's really great about our friends here is that it's going to work so well when we put our podcast on Castbox. Everyone's just going to know exactly what's
Well, that's
happening.
the haunt. They don't even know what they look like.
I know. They're so secret to the people that are listening exclusively on audio. But that's what you're missing out on if you're not watching us live. With that being said, back to Nana. Lewis, specifically, you mentioned user 666. The other ones that you had me watch were Poco Shopping, I believe it's called, and My House Walkthrough. So those are the ones that I did watch. I'll talk about those. I watched a couple more as well. I did not watch any of his Minecraft Let's Play, so unfortunately, I will not be able to rate those as spooky as I assume they probably are.
They're probably just terrifying.
With the creepers, you know what I'm saying, and the enders. I know all about the Minecraft, and so does Nana. But other than that, starting with user 666. So one thing I'll say about this channel, and one bias that I had going into this, is that I definitely was expecting a YouTube horror channel to just kind of be jump scares, purely jump scares. And I was actually very surprised, at least in the ones, Lewis, I'll mention that you recommended to me, that was not the case. In fact, what I think this channel or this user does so well in the horror videos that they've created are just create this overwhelming sense of dread and tension in every video. And I think obviously it got better. So in the 3 videos specifically that you recommended to me, there was quite a time gap between those, and you could definitely tell that this person's skill and kind of their vision got a lot more complex as it went on. But starting with user 666, even there, I was definitely expecting it to be just like purely jump scares. With that being said, you could definitely tell there's this naivete, or there's this youthfulness in kind of what that channel is. But I think what's really interesting is that, to me, it feels like a very early example of kind of using the medium itself to tell a horror narrative.
Yeah, and I'm not sure which came first, I know that username 666 is like also a creepypasta. I don't know if Nana designed the video based on that, or if the other one came second, or if they were made together. I actually don't know. It doesn't really matter though. Like the story, if you could even call it a story, the idea is that if you type in in the YouTube URL the channel. I think it's username 666 or it's just 666. I think it's just 666. I can't remember. But anyway, the point is that if you keep refreshing the page, eventually the channel that once was non-existent actually appears on the screen and shit goes crazy. But it's pretty cool because, like, first of all, the editing in this video is just fantastic, like, for the time. And the use of the early YouTube layout, especially, is probably what makes this even scarier. It doesn't really work as well anymore than it probably did at one time, because I think, like, this just feels like a very early internet kind of thing to me. I don't know if you got that vibe too, but it feels like something that could have only existed in the time when YouTube looked like that. When channels were like MySpace pages, you know, and you could like customize everything. So seeing a channel that had all of these features that weren't available is kind of shocking, I suppose. But I also, the use of sound in this video is really cool. Like, they're using the computer sounds, but also additional sound that the user's unable to turn off on the computer. But it's all screen capture, which I don't know how many people had really worked with that before this video, because I know there's been some kind of stuff done with screen capture since then, even on like big budget scale, like you could say Unfriended, kind of.
Yeah. Yeah, it was definitely a weird blast from the past watching this video, because it's absolutely a place and time thing with the way that YouTube was built in that specific instance. But yeah, this is something that I think I definitely got the vibe of just in general with kind of most of the videos that I watch from Nana, is this just like slow descent into madness. And that's definitely what this video entails, as well as they continue to refresh the page or try to click around and they can't escape. And the videos that they click on this supposed username 666 channel, they get creepier and creepier until eventually kind of there's a little small jump scare at the end, I guess you could call it. But I would say the main through line of a lot of their videos is that like descent into complete absurdity or dread.
Yeah, it just keeps getting worse every time without fail. The structure of the videos is a little bit predictable, I guess. I think what really comes out is the way that each video, because there's even a playlist on Nana's channel of the main horror videos that they've done, and they all do follow the same sort of structure. I think what's really interesting, though, is the different tone, the different amounts of realism, or the different kinds of extremity that it'll go to. I think this one gets pretty absurd. Not as absurd as another one we'll talk about, but like as it starts to build up, I think things just get insane till the end, where it's just screaming and hollering in every like from all the sound, and the video's just going nuts. And yeah, there is like the little jump at the end, but I think what's effective about it is that the build is like pretty appropriately paced, I would say. Everything just keeps getting louder and more tense, and I think it's pretty effective, actually, even now.
Yeah, so with that being said, I'll kind of move into like the next stage of videos that I watched, which are you specifically recommended to me. It's called like Poco shopping or something very similar to that. And I watched quite a number of videos that are very similar to this on their channel, essentially using some form of puppetry to tell a story. Oftentimes they're using the same puppets and they're kind of recurring puppets. So I watched a couple of these types of videos, and kind of same thing, this slow descent into madness and absurdity. This, I think, is a little different in the sense that it's kind of a little more of a gore style horror, I would say, especially this specific Poco shopping one, where essentially as it kind of descends, things are starting to light on fire and there's guts and entrails and all this nonsense. I think what's interesting about this one to me is it almost feels a little more like dark humor comedic in a way. Like
Yeah, definitely.
maybe it's a function of the puppetry that just makes it a little more light than like kind of the next phase of videos that we'll talk about. But um, they they kind of all have that same overtone of like this. The characters have this personality that then kind of devolves as the video progresses, and oftentimes the person behind the camera is having to fix some of these issues. So you're seeing like real humans with the puppets, and it starts to really boil down into like blood and guts and fire everywhere. I watched a similar video that wasn't with puppets, but it was with papercraft. It was kind of stop motion papercraft.
Poco Poco
And
Picoton, that one.
I think so, and that was very similar, where there's like a person that's influencing the world,
Yeah.
but the person is like a negative agent. So like in that one, they were like burning parts of the world, and again, just kind of this slow descent into madness. Lewis, I'm hearing from your side, by the way, I'm hearing, I want to say, is that our friend the Ghost Dogs? I think the
It's
Ghost Dogs.
It's gotta
I
be.
think Ghost Dogs have joined us. Man, we have all the spooks today. Just Lewis, just quickly, in case people in chat don't know, could you describe Ghost Dogs?
Yeah, they're dogs, but they're like ghosts.
Oh my God! Wow!
I think our spook levels have just passed 70%.
Holy moly! So if anyone in the chat thought Ghost Dogs weren't dogs that were ghosts, thank you there, Lewis, for enlightening us.
Oh, so yeah, I wanted to say about Poco Poco shopping. It is actually a little different because, and I don't know if it was supposed to be funny. I think it was. Like this video compared to a lot of the other ones is really silly. It's still pretty disturbing. Like they're cutting little bunnies in half and shit, and the guts are really grotesque looking, like all the gore. I think it looks like melted candles, but whatever they used was really cool. But the video's like really hyperactive, and like they're selling things for the price of $6.66. It's kind of silly. But what's really cool about this one is like the production values, especially compared to Username 666, are just like miles ahead already. And
Yeah.
And also like just the video technique and everything is really really impressive. Everything looks great. And it seems like there's a kind of visual flair to it that's reminiscent of like, you know, kind of hyperactive Japanese ads, which is kind of what this one is posing itself as.
Yeah, I got a lot. I got what was that thing that you had recommended to me a while back with the
Don't hug
puppets?
me, I'm scared.
Yeah, I got a
Yeah.
little bit of that kind of vibe with this specific one. I mean, one, because they're puppets as well, but it's the same kind of like descent and gore and just goes crazy. Um, so that's kind of this style of video. There were quite a number of those. I watched a few of them, and then there's kind of the last style of video, which is my house walkthrough. There was another one that was like exploring ruins or something that I'm pretty sure I checked out. These are the longest videos, and a part of that definitely becomes very unnerving because again, it's that same, as I've been mentioning a couple times now, that same descent. So it definitely is like much more of the thriller sort of a vibe. And when these videos are like 11, 12 minutes long, it's hard to kind of sit through. But I will just say right off the top, my house walkthrough is incredible. Like
Yes.
just technically, I and then I watched the behind the scenes and I was like, how in the world?
I know, it's amazing.
Because there is a behind the scenes that I did end up watching for this because it is just so amazing. The amount of time and effort that must have been put into making that happen um is honestly boggles my mind. I can't even imagine.
I think My House Walkthrough is truly like among the greatest videos I've ever seen on YouTube. Like it's stunning. And it's not just as a video. I mean, as a work of horror, it is so effective. I hadn't been as scared as I was watching this video for the first time recently as I have been in years. I mean, it's like The other Nana videos I think are effective at being kind of tense. I do think some of them have lost their impact over time. I think some of them kind of have a little bit too much silliness in them to really be like terrifying. But this video, I mean, there's so much about it that, for one thing, feels real. Like if you stumble across this video and you look at the description and you watch it, it doesn't seem like a production. And I think a lot of it's in the lighting. When you watch the behind the scenes, a lot of the stuff is actually lit and you can see it a lot better. And it just doesn't, you can tell like it's a fake set. But the way this video was lit and edited, it's like you're actually watching somebody who lives in this just like terrifying house. And things just get worse as it goes along. I guess I'll let you describe it a little bit.
Yeah, first, before I go there, I 100% agree with you. I think this is one of the greatest YouTube videos I have ever seen. I would absolutely, without a doubt, say that. And I watched it a couple times. The first time I watched it, actually both times I watched it was with the lights off, and it did not get any less scary even watching it multiple times. But yeah, essentially the idea is that they wake up in the middle of a typhoon and they're like, sorry, I woke up. I'm going to give you a walkthrough of my house.
Yeah,
and
just in the middle of a typhoon, whatever.
Just in the middle of a typhoon. And even from like minute one, you can already tell something is going on because they mentioned that the tatami mats are a little damaged. And as they're like going through the sliding doors, even those are I guess it's paper. I actually don't know what the material is that are in a sliding door, but a lot of those are like punched out. So even from minute one, you're kind of like, okay, there's definitely something. And obviously, because I had seen their other videos, like I knew something was going to be going on. But even if you hadn't, you could tell there's definitely something odd here. I will say in general, this gives me the exact same vibes as the horror demo, which never actually materialized into a game, PT.
Yeah, it's very similar.
Did, which is very similar. It's this idea where basically they continue to essentially loop through the exact same loop of house over and over again. You could really assume that you're kind of just going in a circle, honestly. Around every corner is another hallway. He even mentions to the left is another hallway, to the left is another hallway. And but each time it just gets progressively worse. And I will say that not only does the house itself and the rooms that they go in get worse, but just even from a cinematography standpoint, like slowly they're rotating the camera so you're sitting at these odd angles. The way that they're using the lighting, because it's pitch black, you're getting only very short snippets of any given thing that they want you to look at. So like, for instance, I remember a specific example where there's this doll, quote unquote, doll room where everything's molded, but they don't show it to you. They're just looking in that direction and then flash the light up at it. So you're only getting these short snippets, as well as like, the camera is turning and the house itself is getting more damaged, and then eventually you find bodies. And it just gets more and more disturbing. And then the other thing is just talking about the madness that you fall into. Then like the lines that they're reciting are the same, but then in a different order. So one of the things that happens is they talk about how this picture is from World War II, and they say that so many times. And around the left, there's another hallway, and there's another hallway here. This is the longest hallway in my house. And it's just like they just keep uttering the same phrases. The Tommy mats are damaged. It's another phrase that continues
My
to get
grandmother is not here.
Yeah. And it really is incredible. I don't even know what else to say about it. Just, it's such an experience. And like I mentioned, it's like 11, 12 minutes long, and it is so gripping, and it has you kind of at the edge of your seat from the first second that this thing starts, because of the way that it just kind of slowly devolves.
Yeah, and I think it's like one of the most effective things about this video is that it's framed as just a tour. Like, this person who's taking you in this tour is not fazed by any of this. This is presumably just their life. They just live here. And as a viewer, it's like as the video goes along, I mean, pretty much as soon as it starts, but as it goes along, it's like more and more you're just like, how could you possibly exist in this environment? And that's like almost where part of the dread comes from, is just being like shocked that this person is showing all of this stuff in such a deadpan and dry way. Um, it's like it's almost as if you accident like you have a, I don't know, a really spooky friend, right? Maybe one of these skeletons, and they take you into their house, and like they're a hoarder, and every single thing about it is just uncomfortable and you don't want to be there, but the video forces you to see everything for like 12 minutes. And it's every reveal that is in this video, every reveal that's major, is like done with perfect timing. The sound design is brilliant. And it brings out that dread. You just hear cracking and storm sounds and such and such. It's like, but it's just so unnerving. It's like one of the things that you just do not want to finish this video. And I gotta commend it for that, because I can't think of anything that's done that to me in a long time.
Lewis, I see someone in the chat. They're mentioning that the skeleton you're talking about, who might lead you into their house unwillingly, is our good friend Billy.
Billy, yeah, definitely, I could see that.
Who's next to you? Billy, lighthearted, carefree, but you don't know what's hiding behind. What skeletons does Billy have in the closet? You know what I'm saying? Like,
true.
I guess we'll never know. Mallory's might know. He's definitely slinking over there to try to find out. But other than that, who knows? Who knows?
Yeah, so I think briefly I want to discuss another video by Nana real quick. You actually mentioned it, which I'm glad you've seen it. Poco Poco Pico Town, that video. That video is amazing as well. Like, that's probably my top 2. I don't know why I didn't give that one to you, but I'm glad you watched it. In that one, you've got these two like children. They're made of paper. They're running around this little box, little world that they can't escape from. And there's this hand that keeps, like, it's very happy. It's got bright colors, sunny music, but then it will like suddenly transition into red, and it looks terrible. And a hand comes in and starts affecting them, and like the two children are terrified. They're running away. That's basically the whole way that video goes. But like, that's one of the more effective ones, because I think it really conjures up like this sort of like child abuse thing. And it's possibly the one that gets under your skin the most, just because it feels really like, it feels especially harrowing. And that's a short video too. That's another one I would strongly recommend.
Yeah, that one is, I would agree. That was probably my number 2. Honestly, the stop motion work in that video is really, really good. And just like the whole vibe of that video is really profound. And that one was one of my favorites to watch.
Okay, so I think we should wrap it up on Nana. I don't know how you want to do it, but just do it however you choose to, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know how to. The other thing is like, it's hard to rate this because this channel is so weird now. So I think because a lot of it is Minecraft, so I don't think I'm gonna rate the entire channel. I think I'll mainly rate the horror videos, or the few that I watched, and I think I'll bucket them into categories. So on the one hand, you kind of have this like playing around with YouTube, which there was one other one that I watched, by the way, where basically it was called like YouTube Secret or something, where there was like a hidden door behind the bar at the top of YouTube, and once they accessed it, they got into like 666 World YouTube essentially. So those videos, I think have a very specific time and place, and I would absolutely recommend watching them. I think that they're an interesting look back at the past and what YouTube was, and how much creative freedom used to have back when there were no YouTube algorithms. So not to get on my soapbox, but I think that it's an interesting perspective of kind of old school, very early YouTube. So those style of videos, I probably would just give like a 5, but a highly recommended 5. Like, they're not very long, easy to watch. The second is kind of in this Pico Pico world, or Pito Pito, or whatever it's called, where they're really puppet videos. I think in general, I like them. They're lighthearted, but I don't know if I would necessarily recommend them fully, except for the one that we mentioned, which was that stop motion paper one. I think that one's very strong. But generally, I would kind of average them again, maybe around a 6 or a 7, just because the production quality did go up in those videos as well. But it is a very different style. And then finally, the real world videos that I watch, which are like exploring the ruins, but specifically my house walkthrough. I mean, honestly, I would give that a 10. Like, I think that is a must watch if you are a fan of horror at all. If you are a fan of feeling absolutely terrified, I would definitely check that out. It is a very, very high recommend. Even if you aren't a fan of horror and you don't want to sleep tonight because it's Halloween, go for it. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, okay. Okay, I like the style you did it. I'll do the same thing. You're right. There are a couple of these sort of messing around with YouTube videos. Username 666 is the famous one. It's also the best one. Taken as a whole, though, it's a really tiresome idea. Like, it works for that video and pretty much only that video. I feel like the other ones, I mean, they're fine. They're cool and all, but it just feels like it's just repeating the same thing, you know?
Oh, actually, I do want to say one thing about that style of video, and I mentioned this at the top. I was coming into this expecting that this channel was just going to be a lot of like, look at the very end, a face jumps out at you, jump scare.
Yeah.
And I will say, besides username 666, a lot of them were pretty much that, actually.
Yeah.
And that I don't really find that entertaining, and I don't enjoy that style of horror or that style of video. So I would give that caveat to that branch as well. I forgot to mention that.
Yeah, so I recommend Username 666 strongly. I think it's a really strong example of early internet horror. Aside from that, this style of content, yeah, I'd say like a 5. But for that video, I'll give it a 7, I guess. I like that video a lot. Then we talk about Poco Poco Shopping. This one got pretty big a few years ago, with a lot of channels talking about YouTube horror because it seemed kind of mysterious. Um, I never found it that shocking. I think it's an entertaining video. I think it's a funny video too, and it is a little gross. It's definitely grotesque. It's not necessarily pleasant, but as a piece of horror, it's not the strongest thing in the world. Like spook levels, 30%. But like production value on that video is fantastic. I mean, if you look at it as a dark comedy, I don't have many complaints. I think it's very entertaining. So I'll give that another 7. There's one video in this style though that I actually might like more than that, and that's the one called Doll. I don't know if you saw that one, Steven.
I don't think I did.
So it's just the main doll, the kind of chubby doll. It's just that doll, and it's like the entire video is just dismal and freaky, and it's really uncomfortable. Of the doll videos, that's probably my favorite one. I just don't think it's essential by any means. But yeah, my house walkthrough is a 10. I mean, like, this is upper echelon internet videos easily. And it's not just horror. It's like videos. Period. This is one of the greatest videos I've ever seen from just a completely independent creator. I was talking about how much I love Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared. I like this more than every single episode of that, and like, that's a huge endorsement for me. Like, this video is insanely good. It is perfect. And I think what I said about it is recommendation enough. So I strongly recommend that if you've got the heart for it, because it is terrifying. Like, it is horrifying. But I guess, there's no jump scare kind of thing really. So if that's the only
But
thing
I will say the one thing about that though, Lewis, is you're right. There isn't one, but the way that it's constructed,
yeah.
the anticipation of there potentially being one is so tense throughout the entire video,
Yeah.
because it really does feel like at any time that could happen.
Yeah.
The way that it's structured.
But all I'm trying to say is if like a face popping in front of the camera and screaming is what makes you too afraid to watch like one of these videos, or makes you not want to, you don't have to worry about that here. So strong recommendation. And other than that, I think we're done. If we want to move on to what you recommended to me, Steven.
Yep, let's do it.
All right.
So, Lewis, I recommended to you the film Poltergeist, directed by the same director as Texas Chainsaw Massacre, produced by Steven Spielberg. Poltergeist was a 80s film about a poltergeist. Lewis, take it away.
Yeah. Okay. So I'd seen this film before, but I was like really young, and all I remember are the iconic imagery from this movie. Um, Coming back to it, I know this to be kind of like a family horror movie, like along the lines of like Gremlins or something, you know, where it's a horror movie, but kind of it's a horror movie for kids more than it is a horror movie on the face of it. Um, and I mean, look, my goal here this Halloween is to raise our spooks levels. You know, I really want everybody to be really spooked. I want everybody to have a really scary time. I want you to leave this podcast feeling terrible, just so shaken to your core, that you will have nightmares for hopefully only this night. Um, but, you know, I don't want to be here to just trash on Halloween classics or something, which is what Poltergeist definitely is. But I'm sorry to say, I hated this movie watching this. I hated it. That might be shocking. I don't know. I don't know how acclaimed this is. I mean, I know people like it a lot, but I don't know if it's treated as like a masterpiece or something. But like, this felt like home improvement horror movie, or like I don't know, maybe not home improvement because there was no Tim Allen. Well, that's one positive I'll say. There was no Tim Allen. Maybe let's say like God, what's the other one? Full House horror movie. I'll go with that. Like, I have a lot of specifics to say, but like just in general, to start off, I feel like this is stupid. It's over the top in a way that is not entertaining, and it doesn't seem particularly aware of itself. It's corny. It's terribly paced. And above all else, it seems like a lot of the iconic scenes from this film were practically designed to be in a trailer more than they were to actually enhance the atmosphere or keep up the pace or anything. And I will get into specifics, but I guess that's my introduction.
Yeah. One thing I want to mention, going back to this again, the special effects are just not
They're not it.
aging
They're not
very
it.
well at all. Even what's funny to me is even the special effects that are practical effects look just absolutely garbage.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's one thing that I definitely noticed on this watch through.
Yeah, the movie feels like a spectacle, you know, and it's not even a good spectacle because it's so, I don't know if you noticed or you felt it anyway, the pacing for this movie, but all the way up until pretty much the climax of the movie, prior to the little ending bit. And I guess I should note, if for whatever reason you care, I don't have a spoiler tag up. I guess, you know, be wary of that if you've never seen this. I guess it's not like there's anything that much to spoil about it. Anyway, this the film's like the opening sequence of this movie is just bizarre. Like, it opens on them in the house. The girl goes up to the TV, which is full of static. It's a really iconic image. It's a great image. I actually really like the static, the shots they do with it, the lighting. It's really cool. It's a cool idea. I can see why it's memorable. But like, she goes up to the TV, she stares at it, and then it hard cuts to like green grass and this sunny day kind of sunny day silliness where this dopey guy is riding around on a bike and these kids are pranking him and the music is like whimsical, and it's just the weirdest thing. Like, I was so thrown off by that. I felt like the movie was I felt like I was watching like a cut version, or like something was wrong with my player. And this happened multiple times. There are like a lot of really jarring cuts like this, especially in the first 30 minutes, early in this film, there's a scene where the neighbors are fighting over the TV remote because both of their remotes work the same, and so the TV's getting switched from football to Mr. Rogers. And this is like a scene in a horror movie. I just I just don't get it. I, the entire first 30 minutes of this film kind of go this way, where there's this like weird whimsical silliness that feels really inappropriate and really stupid and really corny. There's no mood being built, even though there are scenes that kind of try to build the mood. They're just like interspersed so strangely and inconsistently into this tone that it doesn't really add up for me.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you on this one. It's like I don't know what the reception of this is really. Like to me, this feels like one of those classics that you go back to as kind of like a campy, you know,
Yeah.
B style, like go back to, because I will credit this is kind of a non sequitur, but to the plot, I will credit one thing that I specifically noticed in this. I was 100% expecting there to be some scene where somebody didn't believe there was a ghost and it was going to be a whole garbage cliche. And that doesn't really happen here. And I did really like that. Like even in the scenes where people are expected to be crazy and it's like all this nonsense is happening, like the characters that are in the world believe this to be true. I guess like as a specific call out at the very in somewhat in the earlier portion of this movie when essentially they figure out that their house is haunted and they're putting a chair down on a specific location, or they put anything down in a specific location and it slides across the floor by itself. I was 100% expecting the dad to be like, "Oh, you're crazy. You know, the house must be slanted or something, right?" And the movie never does that. It just kind of picks up. It says, "This is the world that they live in. They understand it's the world they live in," and it goes with it. Um, and then the specific reason why I wanted to give you this movie, Lewis, and I want to hear your thoughts, is because, Lewis, I know how much you just love child actors. I know that, like, of all the actors, child actors are your favorite. So, Lewis, why don't you talk to us a little bit about the child
Hey,
actors?
well, it's first of all, I don't have an inherent problem with child actors. They're just young people, and some of them are great. It is true though that I rag on them a lot. I don't mean to rag on child actors as a concept. It's simply the acting in the film, right? And in this movie, yes, it's very bad. It's very, very bad. It is not compelling. The child's what's her? I don't remember her name in the movie, but she she just like the most famous line from this is "they're here," which, by the way, when it's placed in the film, it really feels like a line for the trailer. It's so
Oh yeah,
fucking
100%.
weird. It's so weird. It's like it was like it was designed to be iconic, and I mean it worked, but it's so awkward. But her delivery of all of these lines, she really just seems like she's not really there. I mean, to her credit, though, there are some scenes where I think she does okay. I mean, especially when she's not actually present. That's not meant to be an insult, but like, there are a lot of scenes where you hear her voice coming through from the other realm, and some of these scenes I thought were pretty effective. She did fine. It was her brother actually who I thought was a lot worse.
Yeah, I
Um,
agree with you 100%. That's what
it's
I was going to bring up.
Yeah, it's really funny because like I don't think the director even tried. Like there are scenes where the kid is like laughing when he shouldn't be. The one scene where the whole room shakes because the poltergeist just entered the room. The kid is like in between the parents and he's got this smile on his face, like he was just laughing his ass off. And
Yeah, I do want to mention that I feel
yeah,
like there are a lot of mistakes and they're pretty prominently noticeable. Like I said, I've seen this movie a lot of times, so maybe that's a portion of it. I'm just like now picking up on little things, but this run through specifically, I was like, wow, what? Like, um, as an example, I specifically remember when they're in the bath at the very end of the movie, because they just like got out of that purgatory realm or whatever. The mom and the daughter, like they're supposed to be quote unquote dead, but like you can tell they're like blinking and
yeah, yeah.
like it's not believable at all.
One thing I noticed, there's a scene a pretty cool visual trickery here where there are chairs around a table. The mom bends down to get something out of the cupboard. She gets back up, and the chairs are all stacked on the table, right? When the camera pans down to the mom, you can see a bush, or not a bush, it's like a little potted plant in the room next to the chairs, and you see it rustle like somebody walked past it. And it was so obvious. I was like looking for it because I was like, I kind of knew it was going to come. And yeah, I mean, like, it's funny too because, and you mentioned that the effects look bad. They do look bad, but at the same time, there's.
I mean, I'm talking like they look as bad as Mallory's over here.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
yeah, for sure. Sorry, Mallory's. That was very inappropriate.
Yeah, and I didn't mean that actually. I'm fine.
But like, even though they do look really bad, they are entertaining. They do have. I think that's one of the places where the campy charm does kind of come out in certain scenes. But it's like, it just. This is what I'm talking about with the movie feeling like spectacle. It just like nothing feels grounded at all. And so much of this movie just feels like set piece after set piece. One of the silliest scenes, one of the more famous ones, but it's so goofy, is where one of the paranormal investigators gets in, I guess, a vision from a ghost that he's ripping his face off.
Oh my God.
It just comes out of nowhere. It looks god awful. I mean, it's hilarious. It's funny. But it's like, after it happens, it's just never brought up again. The guy doesn't even seem fazed by it. It's like, okay, we got that set piece out of the way. And it's like, all right. I mean, okay. I'm sure somebody on the special effects team wanted to do the face ripping effect. I'm sure it was a lot of fun, but like, that should have been cut. I mean, considering how rushed a lot of this film feels, and it does, it feels really rushed. Like, things just happen, and there's no build-up or pacing in this movie. There's just nothing. There's no tension. There's nothing. Some of these scenes where characters are sitting around and talking go on for way too long. Like, the cooldowns last too long, and the spectacle just I don't know, it's just like flashes in front of your eyes. It's so obnoxious. But even with all of that, there's still stuff in this movie that seems like it should have been cut. Like, that's the weird thing. I don't know. I
want to go kind of what you originally mentioned. It's like this movie tries to world build in a really strange way. Like when the older daughter is walking by construction workers who catcall her, and then one of them like eats a sandwich or something, and it's like, why is this in here? What is this? This doesn't add anything. Speaking of which, that older daughter, like, why is she even in the film?
She is literally just there, like, sometimes. That's it.
She's just like there sometimes.
Nothing even happens to her.
Yeah. But I do want to talk about some of the things that I do like. Well, first of all, I will say, just like here right now, I do like this movie. I go back to this movie pretty often, but to me it is kind of in that, like, it's this campy, as you mentioned, sort of like family, quote unquote family friendly. You know, you can bring this one out for people who aren't like 100% in the horror vibe, right? It's not like Ghostbusters level necessarily, but for me it feels within that same
It's bordering on Ghostbusters for sure,
right?
Yeah.
And especially now, as it gets older, it just seems even more ridiculous, like the special effects especially. But I mean, there is some cinematography here that I really like a lot. So you mentioned, and you can see it on the poster if you're watching us live, that scene where she's kind of touching the static, and the way that they use the TV static, I think is really great. Some other things are obviously when she turns, it says they're here, and it was clearly just for the trailer. I mean, that shot is a really good shot. A lot of the climax, or before I get to the climax, the tree, I still think that's a really fun scene, even though, again, it doesn't look that great. But essentially, their tree out their window, who the kid is continually talking about how he's afraid of, starts to try to swallow him whole, essentially. And there's a lot of really good use of rain. Like, a lot of the outdoor scenes are dark and in rain, and that adds a little bit of tension. And then in the climax, I feel like a lot of the climax actually is shot really well and has some really interesting concepts, like when they're kind of like rolling around on the ceiling and the walls, or when she has to run down the hallway to try to save the kids, and the hallway like hyper extends. That's a cool scene.
Oh yeah.
So there is a lot of stuff here. And then finally, I just have to say, and I don't know how you feel about this character, but I freaking love this character. The weird, like, Alabama accent, uh, like psychic lady
Yeah.
that kind of comes out of no. Just in general, honestly, to be honest, like besides probably the brother, um, and at times some of the paranormal researchers or whatever you want to call them, I do actually like a lot of the characters here, and I do think that they have good interactions with each other, and they kind of place themselves well into the narrative. But specifically, that psychic lady is just so completely 100% over the top. I have to imagine it's played for at some part laughs. Um, but that whole scene with her and then them throwing like the baseballs, um, throwing the baseballs just like Gary is right above me through the void and that coming out the other side of the house. Some of that stuff I really enjoy.
Yeah. Look, one of the let me think of some positives because I do have some. I think the use of lighting in this film is very effective. You mentioned it with the rain, but also during the exact same scene you're talking about here, there's like this great lighting effect coming out of the closet. And there's actually just in general a lot of cool lighting. I mentioned the static, and yeah, there are
and in general, the closet, the way that they
yeah.
use the lighting of the closet, not just in that scene, but in other scenes as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is one of the more so visually it's got some flair at points. And I actually you were calling it the climax. When I was talking about the climax, I was actually referring to this scene with the psychic, but I guess you could say it's the next one as well. The movie has a fake ending, and for pretty much this entire sequence of the movie, from when the fake ending starts to the end of it, is actually really good. Like, it's the only part of the movie that felt well paced, that felt like there was actual tension. I mean, it was really weird. It was like the movie suddenly became good. I don't know how that happened, but like seriously, like I actually enjoy this part a lot. And yes, it's spectacle, it's goofy, it's not exactly scary, but it's not nearly as silly or hard to take seriously as like the rest of this movie was. And yeah, you're right. One of the coolest scenes in the movie is when she's running to get the children and the hallway extends in front of her. It's such a cool shot. The effect is great. Also, the mom is in bed when she gets like carried around her room from the wall to the ceiling, which I assume the effect was done with an actual rotating room, but it looks really awesome. That's another really cool. That's actually one of the best effects in the film. It's really convincing. The camera work is just great in that part. And yeah, also there's a very famous scene here that I do like. The payoff with the clown doll is pretty entertaining. Again, it's silly. I think it's around this point in the film though where I think they're at least building tension and payoff in a much more satisfying way, where I can at least get behind it a little bit more and kind of enjoy it. It just feels like the rest of the film is just goofy and like unenjoyably goofy. But
yeah, well,
the ending's good.
What's weird about this film, and you mentioned that it has kind of a fake ending, is like I see this film in 3 parts, and I think that's what really makes the pacing feel so strange. There's like this first rising action climax where like everything starts to hit the fan, like starting with when kind of the mom, well, starting with like the they're here scene to when the tree starts trying to eat people. And then there's like this that happens, then there's this super prolonged lull where they're all just kind of sitting around their house talking to the paranormal agents, like nothing really is happening, like something's happening every now and then there's this another rising action climax to what you mentioned with the psychic, and they free the girl. Then there's a fake ending, and then there's just like another rising action climax when like everything starts breaking down because like the house starts consuming itself essentially.
Yeah.
So that's what feels so weird about this movie's pacing. It's like, in fact, when I went back to this time, I had forgotten everything past the tree scene. Like I had remembered that one so vividly that it was strange to me that it was only like 30 minutes in.
It happens.
And then
It happens so early.
so fast.
There's the thing is there's no build up to this stuff. Like all of a sudden shit just hits the fan and it's just like what the fuck? And the editing too. It's like some of these cuts are like immediately you're in the scene where shit's just gonna go down and you're just like okay. Yeah. So.
And then the last thing I'll mention is, I do think like the very, very final shot of this scene, I do think that's a fun little touch, honestly. When they basically they escape the town, it's kind of this crazy stuff that happens. They escape the town, they end up at a hotel. It kind of pans on that for a little while. Then just like Fred Flintstone taking out the dog, or was it the Jetsons when they take out the dog? He takes out the TV from the hotel room, and I think that's a fun little touch.
It's cute, sure.
I forgot that Steven Spielberg was involved in this, and I definitely can feel little bits and pieces of that as well.
Yeah, it feels very Spielbergy, but it doesn't feel like it's masterful at all. It feels like it's shooting for the Spielberg kind of whimsicality, but it's like not appropriate, and it's really awkward, and it feels really joyless to me.
The other thing, that this was the bigger one for me. So I had forgotten Spielberg was part of this, but the other person who was a part of this film, and it's the first name in the credits.
Yeah, I noticed this too.
Kathleen Kennedy.
Kathleen Kennedy.
And I was like, wow, okay. I mean, I know that she's been on so many projects, but it was just surprising to me to see that.
It's an odd start, yeah.
Yeah. So this is technically a Star Wars movie. If
it is now.
Yeah, it's in canon now. So.
Okay, so are we ready to wrap this one up? I think so, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Okay. So I mean, look, I think this movie would be great if you're a kid. I mean that sounds condescending, but I'm serious. Like it's like a kid's horror movie, and I just don't know that you can make that great to begin with, because I think just by its nature it's going to seem goofy to anybody who's older. And I don't even know if the movie was made for kids. It just kind of it definitely had them in mind. Having the two children be two of the stars of the film. I mean, like, it has a lot of great iconography. Like, I will say that about it. But when you actually watch it as a film, I just feel like it's really awkward. It's really sloppy. A lot of it is just bad. The editing is bad. Some of the acting is bad. The effects are bad. And it's just silly. But it's like not... I didn't think it was entertainingly silly or goofy or over the top. It was just kind of obnoxious to me. And it was not an experience that I enjoyed. I think that the tail end of this film, post-fake ending, is actually all pretty solid. There's a lot of cool stuff that goes on in that bit. But it's just too over the top to work, I think. Like, if you're gonna go this route, I would much prefer you to, like, really go all in and be really aware of how silly and goofy everything is. And I don't think this movie is. I think it's shooting to be, again, like a spectacle, and I think it just falls flat on its face. So if I had to give this a rating, I could give it a pity point or not, but, like, I'll just say, when I came off of this, I was feeling like a 3. And I know that's harsh, but, like, I did not like this. I mean, I guess as for a recommendation, it has been a mainstay, I think, of horror, certainly of family horror. Of the few family horror films that are out there, this is definitely one of them. And it probably deservedly so. But, like, would I recommend it? No. Although it's good family viewing on Halloween. Spook meter, like 20%. No, you know what? No, screw it. 15%. This gets a 15% for me on the spook meter.
Yeah, and just like my head is the pitching mound for Gary, this movie is the Indian burial ground of horror.
You have to abort this analogy. It's not working. It has to stop.
Anyway, so even in the part Lewis is talking about, the post encore, though, I will mention, Lewis, I don't know if you remember this, but there's that weird bone dragon or something.
Yeah, I know. It's silly. It's so dumb.
It literally looks like the quality of the skeletons that are on the screen right now. But anyway, yeah, I mean, look, I would definitely give this like something like a 6. I enjoy this, but I enjoy it. I don't want to say ironically, but kind of in that like I like going back to it as kind of a campy horror film. I don't think it's a good horror film by any means. Like for me, the spook meter honestly is like maybe a 5%, maybe a 10%. Like I'd probably even go lower than you did, Lewis,
I was just
because
giving it pity points for the 3. That's all.
yeah, I think that I don't think there's really that much that honestly is, especially these days with just the way that the special effects look now. I don't even know if the special effects looked all that convincing then, but um I just don't really see. There are a couple things like you mentioned the clown, so maybe if you're afraid of clowns, I could see that being a little scary, but it's such a quick flash in the pan. Or maybe like the part with the maggots, but the guy ripping off his face, it looks so bad now that I don't even know if you could look at that one anymore. Um, but would I recommend it? I don't think I would. I think I would only recommend it in the very specific case that Lewis is talking about, kind of as like a family group of horror films. So like put this on, put like a Ghostbusters on, and then maybe if you want to get lighthearted, something like a Hocus Pocus or something like that. I think it definitely belongs in that genre. I think this would be the scariest of those films in that grouping I just gave. But if you were to put this up against some of the other horror classics, it really is not anything to be afraid of. Which is an unfortunate way to end, Lewis, our spooktacular spook contest. But I just want to say, before we transition here, and give our recommendations before we get out of Spooktown, USA, I just want to say thank you everyone for listening. I hope you have a frightfully frightful rest of your Halloween, and boo. So I hope that scared you a little bit there. That was my jump scare for you. I also just want to say, can we give one last round of applause for all of our friends?
Oh, I love them. I love
Thank
them.
you.
But they have to go. They have to go. I'm sorry.
They have to go.
So let us give a I was gonna say warm welcome, but this is literally the opposite of a warm welcome to Ashley and Zoe. Little clap. Ashley and Zoe, great love.
Oh, Ashley and Zoe.
See you around, Mallory's. I love Mallory's. Great guy, great dude.
Keep slinking, my
dude. Billy, just see you around, Billy. I'm gonna miss you. We'll see you next year. Finally, sorry, Gary. No more pitching for today. You gotta get out. I'm sorry. I know he ran out. He ran out of baseball.
The World Series ended last night. So sorry, Billy or Gary.
And finally, our musical accompaniment, Lindsay. We love you. You're amazing. I miss them all. So
for those who don't know, Lindsay was actually providing all of the background music that you heard today during the episode. So thank you, Lindsay.
Yeah, shout out to Lindsay. Big shout out to Lindsay. She is our new skeleton friend. But I think with that, we should move on to our recommendations, which are not spooky. I mean, it's spooky because it's going to look red, but the recommendations themselves, not spooky.
Yeah, quickly, 2 things I want to say, Lewis. One, may they all rest in peace until next year when they may or may not join us again. And then 2, I'm seeing in the chat, people are asking, I don't think we gave our spookometer for My House Tour walkthrough. So, Lewis, if you want to give your spookometer rating for My House Tour walkthrough.
For My House walkthrough, 95%. It's a 95% on the spookometer. The spookometer. I mean, that one almost reaches the limit that humans can take. And that's impressive.
And most people don't know this about the spookometer, the spookometer, but actually 100% is not the highest. For the spookometer, the highest is 666, and I'm gonna give it a 666%.
Oh my god! Okay, round of applause for 666. I gotta give a round of applause for that number. It's really come up today. It's a spooky number. Anyway.
Okay, so with that, Lewis, I think we can go into our recommendations.
Yeah, so I'll go first. Again, this is not spooky. I mean, it might be depending on how you feel, I suppose. So Steven, I'm gonna recommend to you an album. We got a bit of an oddball pick today. The album is called Fun Fun Fun, and it is by Cat's Millionaire. Now this album is made by longtime artist Debbie McCallion, who is also a member of up and coming band Black Dresses. Fun 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 is a My Little Pony fan album that she made in 2013. It's on Bandcamp, and that's all I have to say about that. Okay, what do you got?
Why do you do this to me?
Just trust me.
Okay, Lewis, I'm gonna recommend to you the Fallout Boy album from Under the Cork Tree. This is Fallout Boy's second album. It has nothing to do with My Little Pony.
You're not allowed to complain to me when you give me Fallout Boy
At
from Under the Cork
least
Tree.
not to my knowledge.
That would be an impressive connection.
Yeah, it would have been, but unfortunately, no connection to my knowledge.
Well, anyway, I just want to thank everybody one last time. I know we already gave them a thanks. We gave plenty of rounds of applause. I don't think we need another one. Although feel free to give yourselves one for sticking around. I know this was a scary episode. I know this was really
And what
intense.
I will say, Lewis, what I will say quickly, although we were joined by skeletons on the screen, everyone watching at home has a skeleton inside them.
Oh my god. Oh my god, no.
Yes.
Wow. That's awful. Well, man, now I'm really thoroughly shook, but I think we should probably remind everybody we are on Castbox, and if you want to listen to this podcast, strongly recommended. You can listen to us in the car, you can listen to us on the bus while you're taking a walk, you can listen to us at school, you can listen to us at work, you can listen to us whenever the hell you want to, unless you're in a situation in which you can't be listening to anything, which is sad. Because really, you should have Get Recc'd on at all times. I know I do. I don't know about you, Steven, but...
And one thing I'll say for anyone who might be listening to this episode on Castbox currently, which would be literally impossible at the time of us saying this, but could be possible in the future, we are going to find a way to transcribe in audio the skeleton friends that joined us today. So make sure you're listening for that. It should happen right now. Okay, Lewis, this is where you would do the thing.
Okay, yeah, I'll cut this part out. I'll cut this part out. They won't hear it on Castbox.
Okay, thanks. And there you go, Castbox. You're welcome for that little added benefit.
Great. Well, I think that's pretty much all we have for today. Unless you had anything last to say?
No.
Okay.
I think that's it.
Then those were our thoughts. Those were our recommendations. Get spooked! Ah!